What's up, everybody? It's Simon from Lake Hub, and I have some awesome winter fishing tips for you. In the South, the best time you can have on the lake in the winter time is with white bass, hybrids, and stripers, and we are covering 2 out of the 3 today. I just got off the water on Cedar Creek Lake, southeast of Dallas, Texas, with a guide named Brent Herbeck. It's Herbeck's Lonestar guide service, and he fishes all winter long for white bass and hybrids on Cedar Creek Lake. Let me tell you what, it was everything you wanted. It was cold, it was windy, but it was sunny, and we caught a million fish. It was so much fun. The wind was crazy. It was about 15 to 20 miles an hour the entire time we were on the water. That made the audio a little bit tough. I'm gonna lead in with some of the questions that I asked Brent while we were on the boat, and we'll give you the answers that he gave us. The first question was, what tackle and setup do you need for chasing white bass and big hybrids on the lake in the wintertime?
Well, first of all, we are using what we call dead stick jigs. These are 1.5 ounce tailed with a 3.5 inch fluke. We're using these heavy jig heads which keep our lines nice and vertical. I call it triple rig because you got one above it and then another one just with a single hook right above it. So we got 3 hooks, 1, 2, 3. When it's windy, you got to use a heavier bait. When it's calmer, you got to use a lighter bait. Probably 3/8 ounce paired with maybe only a little smaller 1/2 ounce jig on top.
You can hear the thumper going on in the background of the video. And so I asked Brent to tell us, what does he do for sound attractants?
We're using the thumper. We also got a splasher on our boat that we've been using.
You got this guy.
I've always got a manual thumper to add to the noise. Don't believe what anybody tells you, but thumping always works on. If you're not thumping, you're not catching, okay?
Next, how does the water temperature affect the schooling behavior and the depths of white bass and hybrids both?
The other thing that's big about dead sticking is the water temperatures have to be below 60 degrees. I prefer them to be in between 50 and 54. Right now we're sitting at 54. And you know, with these chillier nights that have been happening these last few days, we're in the 30s, froze last night. That's the kind of stuff you got to have in multiple days in December and January for it to really kick in. And I would say that dead sticking right now is fully kicked in. Once you get into it, the colder nights keep it where it needs to be. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get better here. Next,
I asked Brent, what's the best weather for winter fishing on the lake?
The other thing about dead sticking in the wintertime, today's a nice kind of a blue sky, partly cloudy, barely cloudy, but it's when we have a good overcast and some wind like today. We only caught about 8 hybrids today, but we caught probably 75 to 100 white bass. It's just the hybrids like that cover.
All right, you mentioned that hybrid fishing is better in the wintertime because they're bigger. Can you explain that?
Yes. I mentioned before that the water temperatures get lower, and once the water temperatures get in the 50s, the fish metabolism slow down. And if you can just imagine, if you were to slow down and not move around and just eat and eat and eat, you get plumpy, you get big. And a lot of these fish we're catching, they look like footballs when you pull them out because all they're doing is laying down there and just eating big balls of fish. In the summertime, all these fish do in this warm weather is just run, and they take all that fat off and they skinny up in the wintertime. But this is the time in the wintertime to catch the big trophy white bass and the big trophy hybrids. 6 years ago we caught one that was 12.1 pounds. It was 1 pound shy of the lake record. Last year we caught a couple 10-pounders that were 25.5 inches long. But as you saw today, even with the white bass, we call them magnum bass out here in the wintertime because they look magnum. They're big. They're 14 to 15.5 inches. And like I said, this is the time to catch the trophies and get one on the wall and catch a trophy of a lifetime.
Brent, are there any tips for people who want to hire a guide?
Yeah, I would just make sure you ask the right questions. Make sure that the guides that you're hiring are hybrid fishing guides and they can actually go out and they have all the equipment that you need, like a thumper, a splasher, good quality equipment, and most importantly, they have the drift socks. Because if you go out here and you're just spot locking and dead sticking, you're probably not going to catch as many fish as we caught today, honestly. You're just not. You got to make sure you ask those right questions and make sure that the guide is experienced and you know, and make sure that he's on them, because you come out here in the cold weather and he's not on them, you're going to freeze your butt off.
Finally, I wanted to know, what's the biggest difference between fishing for white bass on the lake in the summertime versus the wintertime? Here's what Brent had to say.
Well, in the wintertime, we're just fishing vertical in between 38 and 55 feet. In the summertime, we're fishing on flats and edges and points with spinners and umbrella rigs and slabs, and we're not using any of that right now. We're using this strictly the straight up and down. You know, this bait needs to be nice and straight presentation with that bait, with that fish, because that's how they're eating it. And you know, a lot of times we'll just slowly raise it up and they'll come up for it, like you guys saw on that active target today, which I'm sure you're going to show a little video of that. Yeah. But that's pretty exciting fishing.
Yeah, so you could see it. You could see it on the display. You could see the fish chasing. If they were kind of pecking at it, or they were kind of looking at it, not really taking it, you start to raise it a little bit, and they just chase after it and hammer it. Really fun.
Special thanks to Brandon Jones Photography. It was so fun to fish and film with Brandon. And mega thanks to Brent Herbeck. Check him out. We'll put a link down below. You can book him yourself and just catch a load of fish in the wintertime on Cedar Creek Lake or several other lakes around the Dallas-Fort Worth area in North Texas. I'm Simon from Lake Hub and CedarCreekLake.com. Get out on the water, y'all, catch some fish.